I had some thoughts with the members of my lab, my students, that we have ideas of mind and body, and that what has plagued researchers, philosophers for years is how do you get from the mind, this fuzzy thing called a thought, to something material, the body? And I thought, well, wait a second, mind and body really are just words. And if we put the mind and body back together, then essentially wherever we're putting the mind, we're also putting the body. So we went ahead and did the first study on this, which was the counterclockwise study, where we put the mind of old people, these were elderly men, they were in their 80s, and that's when 80 was 80, not the new 60. And we had them live in a timeless retreat that was retrofitted to 20 years earlier. They were going to live in that environment for a week as if it was 20 years ago. So they were going to be speaking about the past in the present tense, surrounded by props and things from that earlier time, to see if we could put the mind in a younger place. And we had a comparison group that also spent a week at the retreat, but they were speaking about the past in the past tense. So for them, it was always clear that now was now, then was then. And then they engaged in discussions, watched television shows, saw movies, and so on to help get them back to that earlier time.
And what instructions did you give each of the two different groups?
Well, the instructions were not much more than I just said, that they were told that we were interested in how much they could remember from the past. And so for the experimental group, we told them the best way to do that is for them to act as if it was this earlier time. And they were supposed to correct each other if anybody came back to the present and so on.
And what'd you find out?
Yeah, the results were amazing. Well, first we had taken photographs of all of the men before we started, and we had them evaluated at the end of the study by people who knew nothing about the research. And the group that let themselves go back to the past were rated as looking much younger. They didn't look 50 years old, but they still look significantly younger than they had when they first got there, and younger than the other group. Their cognitive abilities increased, their gait, their strength, their vision, and I believe their hearing. And what was interesting was while this experimental group outperformed the comparison group, they also improved over the course of that time. Here you had people who have been overhelped for for many years, where they're thrown into this new environment where essentially they're in charge. And I think that that was a good thing for all of them, actually.
And you think that's the explanation of why they acted younger?
I think that's the explanation for the comparison group. I believe that the experimental group actually had primed for themselves their younger selves. And, there's nothing sacred about 20 years ago, 5 years ago. The point of it was to prime an earlier time, a time when they felt vital. And so while they allowed themselves to be in this time feeling vital, their minds were more vital and, given the hypothesis, so too would be their bodies. And the evidence seems to support that.